Well, welcome back again. This is, I believe, the final session of our 6th grade painting project. So we have made it to the finish, ladies and gentlemen. And today, if you are where I am at on this painting, we have made it to a state where we're simply going to be doing decorative work today, and maybe some outlining. And we're going to just mix up colors that will, look interesting against the colors. So we're going to do some interesting mixing here. So what I want to do first is review a little bit. We're using our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and with the addition of black and white, we can make almost every color we can imagine. And as a project with the 8th graders, we are making browns and all kinds of complicated violets. So what our task is today is to go around and pick out 15 of the 40 shapes, and those 15 of the 40 shapes are going to get decorations put into them. And so we have to kind of spread those 15 out. And I'm going to use certain decorations myself. You're not required to use precisely those markings, I suppose. You can get creative if you so desire. But this is difficult work because we've spent a lot of time getting to this point right now. 7 full class sessions just to make the painting. And there's 40 shapes. We need to pick out 15 of them. And so I'm going to just simply look at it as I go, and I'm going to pick out those shapes and try to spread out what I'm doing here decoratively. So, for instance, if we were to go up to the pyramid up here, well, it's surrounded by a lot of red, but it doesn't have much yellow going on up in there, and that makes me want to maybe break some of that up a little bit with some yellow little dash marks up here, perhaps in my sun. And so I'm going to take my primaries, okay, and using just the finest tip of the brush that you cleaned completely before you started working with it, I'm going to make little dash marks that kind of, I think I'll put them up, maybe not this area, maybe right, we'll see. Let's see what we're going to do. We're going to go like this. We're going to go, and this is the first step, the first one. So I'm going to go line. I'm just making little dash marks, and I turn my brush around a little more, a little more. It looks like I'm going to need some more paint in here, and so I'll go back and touch that up a bit. There we go. So we want it to be visible, and just the lightest of little marks. Okay, meaning light pressure. So when you're using just the end of the brush, and you're using little dash marks and little dots, what you're doing is something called pointillism. Pointillism is a technique that is used by many artists to make paintings. So I'm going to kind of form a bit of a pattern here, and I'm going to continue decorating this one out until I finish. I may have to go back and touch up portions of it. So we're adding texture and movement, and we're building layer on top of a painting. And paintings are not just colored in, they are built in layers. And a lot of people don't understand that. And so as a result of that, people just think they're done just because they've colored it in. And that is a mistaken idea. You've got to finish it all the way to the finish line, or it's what I'd call an unfinished painting. So these little marks are very interesting, add a sense of motion to the painting as well. People want to follow those little marks. It makes them want to interpret what they are seeing as well. Sometimes you got to go back to a previous little mark, touch it up a bit. So this is very, very kind of fine mark making here. Now I'm just going to keep the pattern alive there, and it keeps getting a little bit closer together each time we make another arc. An arc is a curve. So here we go. And one more time. Now I may have to come back and dress that up again. I'll have to make that decision later. But right now, I kind of like what I'm seeing. So I may go back to some of my previous markings. Because the yellow, as we are all aware, is a very weak color in comparison to the red. And so in order for it to stand out, sometimes it's necessary to go back and retouch parts of what we've done to make it stand out. So I'm using, even though we're using a round brush, I'm getting kind of these dash marks with it, although you may have dots. That would be okay too. Okay, so now it seems like, you know, sometimes you all may think I paint really fast. Some of you may think I paint really slow. So I think that's just a matter of perception. I paint as fast as I can paint and still get good results. That's how I've always tried to do it here. Okay, now that is giving me much better results than I have been getting. There we go. So sometimes you just gotta kind of get the paint to start working with you. And you just gotta be patient with it. Even when you get down to the last part of your painting, you can't get in a rush, because that's just about the time all of that work you've done goes out the window. So don't get impatient. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So there's one down. So let's rinse out our brush and go somewhere else and find something else to decorate up. This time I think I might use some lines of sort. I'm going to stay away from that yellow for sure, because that yellow is a problem child. Okay, I think what I'm going to do in this case down here on my mug, because my mug is a curved object, we're going to use a little bit of curved lines on it. We could use yellow again because we could just dress it up, but then I'm thinking, since we did use this as baby blue, we could use straight up blue or some dark blue, or even, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be bold and brave. I'm going to use red this time. Okay, and this will be my second shape. Now I'm only going to get a little bit of red on the end of my brush. And I'm going to put my initial on this coffee mug. Old on there so nobody picks up my coffee mug and runs off with it. Okay, and then a little more. This is a touchy work. I'll have to touch that up, but I like the way it looks. Okay, that's good. So now let's go back and bold it a little bit. Alright, I may even put a stripe through that, just like we kind of did on the race car. If you recall that project, seems like that was a long time ago now, doesn't it? Okay, so bold up this line. Okay, that looks pretty good. Could touch that up a bit. Oop, that's a nice. Got a little decorative serif there. Maybe one on the top as well. So maybe like this. Pointed porcelain. Okay, so that's kind of attractive. So it's kind of, maybe too much paint on that. Try to clean up the edges of this a bit. That fine marking. we go. Maybe bring down my little syrup there and tuck it together a little more attractively. Okay, so that's a nice decoration on there. And I think what I'm going to do, after I rinse out my brush here, is I'm going to make like a stripe, I think, that will pass. I'm going to use white for this. I'm going to have it go follow the curve of the cup. I'm not going to touch that red paint I just painted down there yet, but I want it to curve in the same direction as the curvature of my mug there. Okay, and so it's the details, the decorative work, see, that make a painting a work of art. It's not just coloring it in. Now, I'm going to be super careful not to touch that red paint. It may still be wet. Okay, that looks pretty good on there, doesn't it? And we're going to continue that stripe on the other side of the B. And it will come out about right here. Continue to curve until it goes off the edge of the cup over here. So, you know, I would put your own initial on there, not my initial, or like your, whatever your favorite football team may be, or your number on your, whatever team sport you may play in, whatever your number is. Or if you've just got a lucky number that you think or if you've got a lucky mug or a lucky logo of some sort that you really think is important to you. So I think I'm going to leave that the way it is and rinse out my brush. And so we've got 2 down. We've only got to keep at it for what, 13 more of these. So we've got to keep moving along. So now we've got something here and here. We got to pick out a shape up in this quadrant up there, and for me that is going to be the heart. And the heart is so black that the only thing that I can think to do to it is to use white on it. And in this case, I'm going to use little white dots on it. And I don't want them to appear like they're in a pattern. So I'm going to dot, and I'm going to just not even think about it. I'm going to put a dot here. I'm just going to put the dots wherever they go, not necessarily thinking about it. So I'm going to speckle these. Okay, and then just keep adding the dots and try not to form a pattern like that. And sometimes that's very difficult to do, but this takes a very soft touch with the brush and only the tip of the brush to make the markings. That one really got a little bit out of control, didn't it? It's a big dot. But you want them to be distributed all the way to the edge of where the heart is broken, and all the way to the edge of the curves of the heart. You know, I'm going to take a little while. And if you're getting good round dots, that's probably a good thing. That's what I'm attempting to get. But sometimes I just get what appears to be a little splatter mark. But I'm going to live with that because that's the way it works. So I'm aiming for blank spaces in there. I'm trying to get them tucked up against the edge of the heart. Against the broken part of it, the zigzagged line. We've got a couple up in there that I missed. Look at that space. Right there's one missing. There's one too. And all those spots. I just want to get some speckles in there. With the lightest touch on the pointy part of the brush. So once we have, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,000,000 of them in there, or maybe as many as it takes, depending on how big your dots are. Oh, that looks kind of neat, like the starry sky. Okay, so we're going to rinse that out. Now we've done 3. We're going to come down to this area right here, and let's go to this diamond shape right here. And I don't know, what are we going to do with it? We may have to make up some green, but we've also got blue right here. If we put blue over top of red, we'll get what's called optical color mixing, which is a fancy way to say that we'll get it should look kind of purplish. In this case, because this is an angular looking object, what I want to do is I'm going to put an eye in it, and I'm just going to draw it in because I want it to look a certain way. Okay, so let's see what we get here. So what I want to do is I'm going to paint in the white portion of the eye right here. And it should be large enough so that it's going to be visible in there. In your diamond shape. And we're not really trying to make it a perfect eye, we're just trying to make it a eye that when people look at it, they say that is an eye. Okay, same thing over here on the other side. Carefully get this portion in. Only the pointy part of the brush. You may notice too that when you are painting over top of dry paint already, that the paint really goes on very accurately and smoothly. When you're painting right on the board the first time, everything is very absorbent, and the paint doesn't really set on the surface of the painting on the painting board. It usually sets it soaks into it, but right now you're noticing that probably sitting right on the surface. Okay, so we should have something that looks like this. If you do, that's good. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. But we're going to now maybe touch that up a bit. It looks a little thin on the color, so we got to go back with our white and make sure we get opacity there and symmetry. So it looks kind of the same on both sides. We don't have a pink color. Or it might be unavoidable. Alright, so let's keep this moving here. Okay, so now that I got that done, I'm going to clean out my brush real quick and make sure that it's dry. And then I'm going to pick up some of the blue and I'm going to carefully paint in like a donut shape, because I have to leave a little space in the middle for the pupil, and you got to be very careful not to close that down. You have to use just the lightest touch with the brush. Be very careful. Sometimes, even when you're careful, you'll make disastrous errors. So we're just trying to paint in like a capital letter O here right now. not paint out everything we just spent all this time trying to paint. Alright, I'm feeling pretty good about this now. Alright, so I can start closing this down a little bit so that that circle gets a little smaller. Looks like a target, kind of. And dress up this bottom portion. It's giving me fits here. Alright, we're good. Now, let's get all that a little more opaque. That O shape. And we still want to keep closing down that circle, that red circle in the middle. Or red-orange is what it is, actually. It's not red at all. It's red-orange. Okay, so here we go. We're about to succeed right here on this. Let's get it closed down. Look and see what we got there on the projection screen. So I want the circle in the middle to be centered up in the middle of the blue circle. But now, see, it's of course looking violet because we put blue paint over top of red. And that gives us something called optical color mixing, which is different than mixing it together right on the mixing card. Okay, now I'm going to take some black after I clean out my brush. Pick up some black, dry my brush, pick up some black and put it in the very middle, being very careful not to touch the blue. And if you can, I'm going to leave that little red outline, so it's like a black circle with a black dot with a red circle with a blue circle with a white kind of triangle on each side of it. I think that's going to, well, maybe I better, it's starting to look a little strange now because it's not symmetrical anymore, but if I can monkey with it a little bit and get it to be symmetrical, I'll be thrilled, but it's just fighting with me. That's not bad. Probably should just leave it alone, shouldn't I? But it looks kind of lopsided on the projection screen, so that means I'm going to have to mess with it. Oh yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Now, let's see how that looks. I think I'm just going to leave that alone because I'm burning time. So, let's move on here. Rinse out that paintbrush. So now we've got 4 shapes that we've done. We've only got like 11 to go. We may have to change that to a little fewer shapes depending on how much time we got. Okay, so let's move back over to another area. So if we go back over here again, we can keep on going through these and look for some shapes and things we can put in there. We could go in this area right here and put in little black dots, okay, or little black dashes like it's the desert or something. So let's take a little bit of black because we used white over on the other side. Why not some black over here? Make sure this is dry before you start doing all this. Okay, and we're going to look little black dashes. We're not going to, or little black dots. We're not going to make a pattern if we can avoid it. And just tiny touches of the brush with the lightest amount of pressure. And don't be afraid to get up next to the pyramid. And try not to form a pattern. So we're just aiming for the blank spots and just taking tiny bits of black paint and adding it into the salmon color that we made. And so we're embellishing it. Embellishment is an important part of making art, and it's the decorative aspect of making art, where we, you know, just try to make it look good. It's, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to represent anything. It just has to have features in it that, you know, people will look at and you know, and try to interpret and ask themselves, sometimes even the artist, what does this represent? And you can tell them it represents whatever what do you think it represents? And that's always a good conversation starter, is that people want to know what the painting is all about, but they, you know, also sometimes don't want to ask because they think they should know by looking at it. And so people are funny, hard to understand. And I think that's what art really is about, is trying to understand human perception and the way that people communicate with each other. Now I'm constantly flipping this brush around in my fingertips in order to, just like when we did the drawing unit, I think I said that a bazillion times, that we're simply just trying to keep the point of the pencil or the paintbrush or whatever it is that we are painting or marking with, our marking utensil, whatever that is. And in this case it's a paintbrush, it's loaded with paint. So we're simply adding embellishments and decorations at this time. And some of the dots can be bigger than other dots. They don't all have to be uniform, because we're trying to not form a pattern anyway. So we're trying to be asymmetrical in the way these dots are distributed. Alright, well, there's only so many dots you can put into something before it gets a little bit overworked, right? So it's probably about time to move on to another area of this, and making sure that we have the dots, that we're not afraid to put them up next to the line, like a courage, artistic courage. So artistic courage is when you simply just make a mark and you live with what you've made, even if it didn't come out precisely the way you thought it would. Okay, that's good. Now we've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shapes marked in. We've got to continue on. We may just cut this off at 10. That would be fine too. So let's go back to look at where else we can make a difference here. So we've got 2 things up in here, and we've got 1 thing here, 1 thing here. So let's maybe come down into this area and put in something interesting. And I'm thinking over here in this green area, that looks like it could, or even in the violet area might look good too. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to paint some stripes down the green, and then we're going to use white to do that. So make sure your brush is clean, and well, we could use red, couldn't we? Let's try red. Let's see what happens when we put red on green, what kind of optical color mixing we get. And we're going to just paint a line it should be tilted the same way as the shadow from our coffee mug is. We're going to paint one line, and then we're going to hold our breath, and we're going to paint another line, and with any luck it will be parallel. If we flip our brush over, we get another line. Looks pretty good. Okay, you may have to go back and touch that up a bit if you want it to look good. There we go. Now we're going to get another one. We're going to go line again, and we're going to try to keep them evenly spaced and about the same thickness. So we're painting stripes. Okay, same thing again. We're going to just go back and continue that. Now this time, can we have a steady hand? Can we keep it parallel to the previous lines? See? Now that's when you know this time we're going to need a little bit more paint, but you got to be careful because in this instance we can't press down real hard on the brush, but we have to paint farther. So okay. Now we have to go back and try to dress that up, because over the long line you can get some issues with line density, line quality. There we go. Oh, that looks pretty good. I've still got a little blob of paint up there I can move around a bit. Okay, So let's go back here again. And so this is all we're doing here, is just decorative touch-ups. Trying to keep it parallel. And then we can go back and just dress up our stripe. Now in the physical classroom, many times we put a border around this painting. And then at the end of the project we do decorations in the border as well. And so, but this is probably going to be our last session for the 6th grade painting project. And so we've got to bring this unit to a close. Okay. And maybe this line would go here. Let's see. But it would show up back down here. And then there might be a line visible right in the little hole in the handle of the coffee knife. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them done. I think we're going to have to call it off at 10, aren't we? So let's go down. There's 2 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So let's go to here, and I think I'm going to use, let's say, what would be a good idea on the bottom of this? Maybe something as simple as a blue. Let's take some of our blue, make sure your brush is clean, and we're going to follow this zigzag. So we're going to zig out, zig down. Maybe you have to go over it once. Same thing again. We'll move over a little bit. We'll follow that line. Zig out, just like we're making a letter or a numeral 7 or an upside down capital letter L. Now it does tilt a little, doesn't it? So it tilts a little. And then when it gets to there, it comes down. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll do the same thing again here. Okay, and this will go tilt down just a little bit, and then kind of follows that, gives it a weird three-dimensionality thing working. Okay, and then we'll have to just maybe touch up these stripes we just made, so that blue kind of pulls us along, takes us down to the next portion of the painting, which strangely is blue. Okay, so we're making pretty good time. Same thing again. Now, depending on how much time is left in the painting unit and how far we get, I may alter some of the unit. So, you know, we're supposed to do 15 of these, but I think 10 will be enough. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll go up to here to make some markings in our heart. Now, in this choice, this chance, I think what I'm going to do is go with maybe some, what would be a good idea here? Maybe some, this was done in blue. Maybe we should go to mix up a little bit of green for our heart. So if we take some yellow and put it on the side, or put it on a mixing card, a little bit of blue, mix that up, we should have some sort of green. And once we get that green, we're going to paint little specks on our heart, on the right side of the heart. So that'll give us 9, I think. I got to move my paint card before I put my hand in it, or anything else. Okay, so right here on the heart, green. See, green and red are opposite colors too, and so they usually show up pretty well against each other. But the specks and the stripes and the zigzagged lines, these are all kind of neat things to add to your painting. Sometimes people make diamond shapes in it. Sometimes people do all kinds of crazy things to it. But we want it to look good, and to look like it was meant to be the way it comes out, not just however it comes out, right? And that's unit of what we were attempting to achieve. Okay, that looks pretty good. It looks like it needs one right there, doesn't it? Okay, so we've got that. This is starting to come together, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. We need to come up with 2 more shapes real quick to fix up. And I think we'll call it off at 10, although in the physical classroom we would probably go to 15. So, in my opinion, I'm going to go with white in this cloud up here. And I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to draw, make sure I don't put my hand in wet paint. I'm going to go from right here, and I'm going to draw a curved line that mimics that one. A curved line again that mimics that one. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. Like this one. Oh, I just stuck my hand in paint. You got to be careful. You got to be careful about that. Okay, this is a bit troublesome here. I'm going to have to do it like this. Okay, then I'll get my white. Make sure I don't put my hand in my painting again. Okay, so I think that's kind of a neat marking, and then I'll just have it go off the side like that. Now I'm going to go back and reinforce that a bit. Up. Oh, ding, right in my face. Didn't expect that. Okay, now I'm also going to continue to, since we got one more shape to put in here, I'm just going to carefully, I like this to come down right here. I like the way that looks. Okay, now, let's see. We got one more shape that we got to decorate, and that would be get us to 10, which is fine for this particular project here, since we're not in the physical classroom. And I believe, let's see, because we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It probably needs to be in one of these areas that's a little bit deficient, and I'm going to probably have to go, I don't know where to go. Maybe over here in this light orange would be a good place to put some blue, some more blue. Well, wait a minute, we still should have some of that green left. Let's use that green. Let's pick up that green, and we're going to simply put some, we're going to kind of outline it with green, but with a border on the inside. Okay, let's get that green. Okay. Sorry about that brief interruption. So what we were doing though at the moment was I was working over here with some green. So we're going to finish that up, and then the last step that we've got, now normally in the physical classroom we would have painted in 15 of these shapes and embellished them and done decorative work on them. But in the lesson that we're doing right here, I think it's about time to bring it to a close. I think 10 is more than enough. However, in the physical classroom, it would have been 15. And if we are in the physical classroom, we will continue and do 15 of these. Now I'm simply just trying to paint some sort of a decorative kind of a inlay of this, so it kind of mimics what we see in the outer portion of it. And you know, it can be a little bit transparent on this. When we put layers of colors over each other, we start getting interesting effects. And so this will be the 10th shape, at least in this particular painting that we're making as the E lesson here, or maybe as a makeup lesson, or even as the actual lesson, because it's been very successful. Okay, now I'm going to just kind of finish this up quickly, make sure I'm not putting my hand in any wet paint. continue my outline effect that I'm doing here. I guess I'd call it an inline, wouldn't I? Make sure I don't put my hand in any of the wet paint. And then, all we've got to do, we've got one last series of tasks to get through, and we can call this project finished. And it's taken basically 8 sessions from the time we started drawing it to the time we finished it. Now, what that is just basically a shape to embellish it. So we've got our 10 shapes done. Now, once we get that done, we traditionally either use paint or a marker, and we go back over top of our original shapes to dress them up. So we simply just go back with I'm using a fat marker, and you should too. And what we are attempting to get is something that looks like a stained glass window. And we're done with all of this. And that is really a very attractive effect. So if you have got a Sharpie or a fat permanent marker, then this is what you should be doing next. Okay, let me see where I'm at right here. I'm trying to make good marks that, cover any kind of flaws that I might have had as I went through this project. And we're simply outlining the original shapes, not any of the decorative work we've done. Okay, so we just got to keep carefully going through and not dragging our marker through any wet paint. That's bad. Let's see, there's a little mark right there. There's this large curve. So we're simply just, I put my hand right in my paint on the sidelines because I wasn't paying attention. See, that's what happens when you don't pay attention to what's going on around you. And art is supposed to help you pay better attention to what's going on in the world around you. But in that case, it wasn't working for me. Alright, I gotta make sure I don't get all crudded up. Just at the moment we're about ready to finish. Okay, now, where was I? Oh yeah, right here. This marker is so big I can't see around it. Okay, and I'm just going to keep going back over my original markings that I made, showing me where all of the parts were at. There's another one. So accuracy is kind of important in this, more than speed. Okay, and then our first broken heart, and then this, like this, and the heart comes down. It's there. There's the flying heart effect up in there. So once we get it all outlined, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with this project, and it's been a good project, by the way. We've made tons of progress every day. So I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making the painting myself, and so it will be, of course, once we complete a painting and a unit, that means we will be taking a quiz and grading this unit very shortly, which includes an evaluation of the painting, evaluation of your notes, evaluation of the artwork and your work habits as well. Okay, now this is kind of going to be, I think I'm going to leave my mug unoutlined. It's got a thin outline on it already, but if you don't have one, you should probably make sure you get an outline on your mug. Okay, and also the steam rising out of it. right there is important. Okay, I'm just going to keep on filling in my outlining. And see, these lines really bold up the work and make it really kind of pop out, and that's one of the things that I really like about this particular drawing or this particular project, is when it's all done, you know, it looks fantastic. Okay, gotta be careful where I put my hand so I don't put it in wet paint. Accurate outlining. This taken care of in here. Okay, and then we're down to our last few markings here, I think. And you want to go through and proofread your work, of course, and see that you've got all the markings that you set out to outline done proper, and that it looks good and as like it was meant to be the way it is. That's the whole purpose of making an art project, is to get that sense of unity. Okay, let's really quickly take a good look at what we have made here and see if everything is done. It looks to me like everything is outlined. I'm going to probably have to outline that coffee mug, I guess, if everything is to be outlined like the project says. So I've got to be brave. There we go. And so I think we'll just call that project complete. You would want to put your name down here in the lower right hand corner and sign it and date it 2020. Alright, good job. We're going to call this project done. Good job, ladies and gentlemen.